Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in, well, what has to be one of the most chilling investigations we have ever sourced.
It really is.
This isn't just a study of crime. It's a terrifying look at what happens when hyper-organization, absolute precision, collides with a really profound personal psychopathy.
Okay.
Our source material centers on Detective Alex Cross, and it traces how this massive coordinated crime wave, which at first just looks like highly professional bank robbery, starts to bleed into his own personal life.
It forces him into this two-front war.
Exactly. He's fighting for his family's survival and at the same time for the life of his city.
And that duality you mentioned is really our mission for this deep dive. We have to move beyond just the body count to understand the mind behind this person, the mastermind.
Psychology of it.
Absolutely. We're going to be extracting the critical insights into his tactical precision, but also recognizing that his motivation, it's driven less by money and much more by this extreme, almost statistical demand for perfection.
A pathological grievance.
That's the perfect phrase for it. A pathological grievance against society. We have to look at all of it. The technical details, the medical precision of his kills, and the devastating double deception he engineers to protect himself.
So before all of this chaos really erupts, the sources, they paint this picture of deceptive calm in Cross's world. We start right in his home, a place that's anchored by this beautiful, but you can tell it's fragile, sense of normalcy. It's such an immediate contrast to the horrors he's about to face professionally.
It is. You get this incredibly domestic scene. You have his daughter, Janny, who is just a whirlwind of energy. She's practicing her dance steps with the family cat, Rosie.
Who is apparently a very, very tolerant dance partner.
You'd have to be. But it's those small grounding details that really matter here. And the anchor of that whole household is Nana Mama, Cross's grandmother. Her wisdom is, it's literally a fixture of the house.
Yeah, we learned this from a note she'd tacked onto the refrigerator door.
Yeah.
It's a powerful quote from Toni Morrison about the magic and feistiness in black men that nobody's been able to wipe out.
And when you look at what's coming for Cross, that quote is, it's so prophetic. It sets this theme of resilience that he is going to need just to endure the personal onslaught that's about to hit him.
And the immediate setting is actually quite celebratory. It's a christening party for his infant son, Alex Jr.
Right. The whole extended family is there. Damon, Janny, Nana, and of course his partner and best friend, John Sampson.
Who somehow manages to be both this enormous man and at the same time extremely gentle while holding this tiny baby.
Sampson, who is always the master of, opportunistic charm, is using little Alex Jr. as this unwitting prop to hit on women at the party. The source material captures that with some much-needed levity.
It does. But even in the middle of all this joy, you can feel the stress. The relationship with Alex Jr.'s mother, Christine Johnson, is extremely strained.
Very. She and the baby are living apart from Cross and the other kids.
And we learn this distance is a direct result of her past. She still suffers from this unending fear and violent nightmares. They're specifically triggered by the memory of her former kidnapper, Jeffrey Schaefer.
The man Cross chillingly calls the Weasel.
Yes. Her trauma is this constant, unhealed wound in their relationship, is what's preventing them from having any kind of stable family life together.
So that background of deep, unresolved trauma is just this low hum beneath Cross's daily existence.
And it's into this very fragile, celebratory scene that the professional world just violently intervenes. Kyle Craig, the FBI agent, arrives late at night. He shatters the whole party atmosphere.
And he's there to discuss a brutal case. He believes that DC connections, or, maybe more critically, Cross's unparalleled psychological expertise, are urgently needed. The violence he describes, it immediately signals this is not your typical case.
So let's transition now. Let's get into the initial crimes and start analyzing the method. Because what Kyle relays to Cross immediately sets this series of events apart from any standard professional robbery. This is a terrifying new level of precision.
It is. We jump right into what the media quickly dubs the Silver Spring Massacre at a Citibank branch. This was an operation that was just meticulously choreographed. But the central insight for the investigators, the thing that changes everything, is that when the slightest deviation occurred, the consequences were immediate and catastrophic.
This mastermind demands total statistical compliance.
Yes.
And the detail here is the key to understanding his pathological need for control. The crew had already secured the money, but the entire operation was invalidated because the crew member inside the bank missed the exact 8:10 a.m. deadline.
And by how much? By less than a minute? 30 seconds, maybe?
for that tiny infinitesimal infraction. The manager's husband, their pregnant nanny, and their 3-year-old son were all executed. It screams volumes that the failure to meet the exact timeline was more offensive to him than the crime itself.
It establishes his pathological standard right away. 9.9999 out of 10 for success. Anything less than that statistical impossibility means death.
It's not the logic of profit.
No, not at all. It's the logic of a highly rigid, narcissistic personality who views any deviation, any imperfection, as a personal insult that demands lethal retribution.
And we see this retribution applied not just to the victims, but immediately and brutally to his own team.
Right away.
The source material reveals the shocking elimination of the original crew, Errol and Brian Parker. And this hits Cross immediately and personally.
Because Errol was his late wife Maria's stepbrother.
Exactly. So the case now has these deep emotional connections to Cross's own past trauma. It's not just a case anymore.
And this is where we need to delve into the technical aspect of the murder, because it defines the mastermind's extreme pathology. They weren't just shot. They were killed via a progressive, painful poisoning.
Using anactine.
Using anactine, which is a paralyzing agent. We learned the mastermind administered a series of small, increasing doses. This would paralyze their motor muscles, including their respiratory system, all while leaving them fully conscious.
The horror of that you can't overstate it. They would have experienced the sensation of drowning while being fully aware, which leads to cardiac arrest, and it leaves their bodies grotesquely contorted as their muscles seized up.
The description in the source material is that they looked as if they had fallen from a great height. Their bodies were just found in an abandoned project near the Anacostia River.
And the mastermind didn't just walk away.
No, he watched them die. The source notes him standing over them and intoning, "to perfect crimes."
It's a ritual.
It reinforces that he views these executions as a necessary ritual, a commitment to his extreme, twisted ideal.
But the cruelty doesn't even end with the poisoning. What was found later, after decomposition had started, it suggests a deeper, more ghoulish pathology.
Yes, the detail regarding Brian Parker is deeply, deeply disturbing. Her top had been removed and her jeans were pulled down, exposing her red panties.
So while it's impossible to be certain,
Cross immediately questions if the killer had sex with Brian Parker after she was already dead. This detail, it transforms the mastermind from just an organized criminal into a sadistic sexual predator.
a ghoul, as the mastermind himself later seems to acknowledge.
Right. And that really sets the stage for the next crime, and the escalation is just, it's so rapid. He immediately starts recruiting for the next job, which showcases his need to constantly be moving forward.
So we transition to the Falls Church escalation of the First Union Branch. The new crew, Mr. Red, Mr. White, Mr. Blue, and Mrs. Green, is far more sophisticated.
Much more. They're high-tech, they're wearing headsets, using police scanners, and operating with, well, with military efficiency.
They're professionals.
Yeah.
Superior to the Parkers in every way.
Clearly. The mastermind has learned from the previous job and eliminated any potential weak links. In this case, Mr. Blue, he's the insider, he hears an alert come through on his police scanner. Robbery in progress at First Union Bank.
And that's the calculated trigger.
That's the trigger. Mr. Blue immediately executes 4 employees. This wasn't an execution in retaliation for some failure. This was execution as part of the plan.
And the crew member inside even used this chilling, calculated line of psychological manipulation on the manager earlier. He says, I have children, you have children. We don't want them to be fatherless.
It's designed to project empathy while he's literally committing murder. But this is where the pattern becomes intentionally confusing for the FBI task force.
Right. In the Silver Spring case, the manager's family was executed.
But in Falls Church, the manager's family, a mother and 3 small children, are held hostage but are ultimately released unharmed. So why the contrast?
That deliberate confusion is his signature. It has to be. He's not aiming for consistency. He's aiming for control over the investigation's psychological profile. He wants them to second-guess everything: the motive, the target, the pathology.
And the source confirms the chilling truth of it all. The mastermind himself placed the alarm call that Mr. Blue heard on his scanner.
Oh, wow.
The 4 employees were killed, not because of a failure in execution, but because the mastermind visualized it with pleasure. The murders were, and this is a quote, the whole goddamn point. He wanted those specific employees executed for his own twisted satisfaction.
So let's pivot to the official response. This crime spree immediately becomes high profile. It demands the highest level of federal intervention. It forces the creation of a dedicated FBI task force.
That task force was led by Kyle Craig, but the operational command fell to the senior agent in charge, SAC Betsy Cavalier.
And Cavalier is described as exacting, precise, and highly competent. She's a real expert when it comes to profiling bank robbery operations.
She is. And they immediately started comparing the cases to similar patterns, specifically some Midwest robberies committed by a duo named Doherty and Connor.
And those comparisons are essential because they really highlight the deviation here. Doherty and Connor were famous for using family kidnapping to force bank employees to comply.
Right. But Cavalier notes the crucial difference. Doherty and Connor, quote, never hurt a soul. They were congenial and pleasant to their hostages.
They hated banks and insurance companies, sure, and they used the same methods of psychological coercion, but they were not mass murderer.
Which confirmed Cross's early hunch. This motive went way beyond simple financial gain. The mastermind wasn't just leveraging the threat of murder. The executions were the end game. That points toward a profound, deep-seated, and just, a completely disproportionate grudge against financial institutions.
And we get to see the inner workings of this grudge through the mastermind's private manifesto.
The hate mail.
The hate mail. We get access to his draft documents he never sent because they were too dangerous, too incriminating, but they reveal the terrifying depths of his psychological state.
And this is where the profile truly solidifies. His outrage is completely, utterly disproportionate to the offense. He requires this mythical 9.99999 out of 10 service level. He's viciously angry over the most minor bank errors.
Like what?
A delayed fund transfer that threw off his accounts by a day, improper address changes, and the ultimate catastrophic insult being denied a personal loan.
By a junior loan officer he contemptuously dismisses as Little Miss Princeton Priss.
Exactly. It's a textbook case of narcissistic injury. He's someone who feels utterly entitled, and any perceived slight, no matter how trivial, a clerical error, a denial of credit, he experiences it as a profound attack on his worth, on his very being.
He projects this extremely fragile ego onto these massive organizations. He feels wronged by the big boys and girls, and his systematic revenge is the calculated murder of their employees and their innocent families.
The financial gain, while it's massive, it's secondary. It's secondary to the expression of this extreme personal grievance. This confirms the motivation is deeply rooted in a paranoid personality disorder, which becomes crucial later when we start to examine his decoy.
The investigation had to shift gears dramatically next because the mastermind decided he'd made his point with banks and moved on to a new target. The focus shifts entirely to the insurance industry.
Specifically, Metro Hartford Insurance Company.
This was a tactical widening of his target scope, wasn't it? It reinforces the idea that his grievance wasn't limited to one type of financial institution, but the entire system he felt victimized by.
That's right. He targeted the executives' wives and children. He kidnaps them right off a chartered Washington on Wheels tour bus in D.C. near the Mayflower Hotel.
The operation was meticulous. It demonstrated an advanced understanding of police response. They executed this highly technical plan, quickly changing the bus's alphanumeric indicator.
Which is a vital piece of information that police aircraft use for tracking.
And they forced the collection of all cell phones, knowing the authorities would rely on digital tracking and pings to find them.
And this is where the psychological warfare just escalates dramatically. The kidnappers, they contact the FBI directly, and they state chillingly, "We welcome the Bureau. We've written you into the plan."
He's not just avoiding capture anymore. He's actively engaging them, taunting them, demanding their attention, and showcasing his tactical superiority.
It's a game of intellectual dominance, with human lives as the chips.
It's relentless. But while this professional threat is escalating to this level of active engagement, this national security crisis, Cross was simultaneously facing these concurrent, devastating personal crises that were threatening to shatter his family structure completely.
The sources really underscore that. The man leading the hunt was himself being emotionally just torn apart.
This duality, the tension between the perfect, organized evil he's hunting and the chaotic, deeply personal pain he's enduring, it really defines this phase of the story.
And it started with his daughter, Janny.
It was so sudden, catastrophic, and terrifyingly misleading. She suffered these sudden grand mal seizures following what seemed like a minor blow from her brother Damon during a boxing practice in their basement.
Cross, as a father and a former boxer, probably just immediately dismissed it. A simple concussion, you know.
Yeah, of course. But the diagnosis was harrowing. and completely unexpected. Janny had a large, life-threatening pilocytic astrocytoma, a brain tumor, located deep within her cerebellum.
The emotional impact on Cross was, well, it was immediate and overwhelming. He was completely shaken. He's wrestling with the raw terror of watching her frightening spasms, her lips turning blue. His professional training was useless against this personal biological attack on his child.
And the sources detail his extraordinary emotional response to it. Janny, despite the trauma, she shows this incredible resilience. She tells her father she's decided she wants to become a doctor.
And Cross, just before her surgery, he performs this profound symbolic act. He shaves a small patch of his own hair to match her pre-op prep.
A silent, powerful gesture of solidarity.
He spent night after night at the hospital, just watching the sunrises, contemplating the possibility of their last moments together. This experience, it just profoundly alters his perception of risk and loss. It makes the mastermind's calculated violence even more repulsive to him.
And at the same time, his personal life, already so strained, just fractured completely. Christine, haunted by that past kidnapping by Schaefer the Weasel, she finally confronts him.
She tells Cross she's leaving D.C. after the school year. She just can't cope with the constant fear and the violent nightmares anymore. His job makes her a perpetual target.
This was the ultimate heartbreak. Christine was pushing him away after months of emotional distance, ending their tenuous romantic relationship. But the pain was compounded.
She felt utterly unable to properly care for Alex Jr. due to her ongoing debilitating psychological condition. She makes the devastating decision to ask Cross to take full custody of their son.
Cross was left feeling, in his own words, hollowed out and empty. He gained the immense responsibility and the joy of full custody of his infant son, but that gain was completely wrapped in the devastating loss of the woman he loved.
In a way, the Mastermind investigation became a necessary distraction for him, a mechanism for channeling his overwhelming personal grief.
The Mastermind, meanwhile, wasn't just escalating his game. He was specifically targeting those investigating him. He transformed the hunt into an outright minefield of internal politics, arrogance, and deception.
The first concrete break, paradoxically, came from a source of absolute corruption.
The family of the Metro Hartford kidnappers. The crew members were identified as corrupt NYPD detectives, led by a man named Brian McDougal.
And the key witness wasn't McDougal himself, but his smart, angry daughter, Veronica. She was just sick of her father's abuse of her mother, his illegal side jobs. Her testimony was highly credible. She knew about his movements, a secret cash stash.
McDougal was captured and immediately tried to cut a deal with the FBI and the Justice Department. He's seeking a minimal sentence at the notoriously soft Camp Fed.
And he gives them what seems like the crucial lead. The Mastermind, who only ever referred to himself by that name, was last seen entering the Hazelwood Veterans Hospital in D.C.
So this lead forces Cross to deploy psychological training directly against the target environment. He goes deep undercover.
As a mental health worker in the psychiatric ward, specifically Ward 5, which is reserved for dangerous, deeply disturbed patients.
His partner, Samson, accompanies him, adopting this humorous cover story about having worked as a porter at Union Station.
The hospital staff, though, especially Dr. Chaffee, they were intensely skeptical. Chaffee insisted that none of their deeply, deeply disturbed patients could possibly possess the cognitive function, the organizational capacity, to orchestrate this level of crime.
They were too psychotic, too disconnected from reality.
Exactly. Yet, Cross diligently works through the patient files, he observes their behavior, just trusting his gut.
And he identifies a promising suspect, Frederick Sabo, a patient housed on Ward 5.
Sabo was described as a timid drifter with profound paranoia and this visceral hatred for Fortune 500 companies, a hatred that perfectly aligned with the Mastermind's private manifesto.
And he had city and grounds privileges, but mostly kept to himself. He seemed harmless.
So Sabo fits the paranoid profile, but not necessarily the Mastermind profile, so Cross makes a bold move. He tracks Sabo off grounds and breaks into his secret D.C. apartment.
And the evidence he finds there is initially damning. It seems to confirm everything. He finds blueprints of the robbed banks, the layout of the Mayflower Hotel where the bus was hijacked, and stacks of hostile hate mail.
And it's not just to banks. It's directed at seemingly random corporations like Exxon, Kodak, even a local business, a Lee Laundry.
This evidence, coupled with a deep dive into Sabo's actual history, seems to confirm the connection. Hospital records falsely listed Sabo as a Vietnam drifter.
But Cross's investigation proves he was actually the former head of security at First Union Bank, the very bank targeted in the Falls Church escalation. This explains his expertise, his access, and his deep-seated grudge.
So Szabo is arrested after a violent confrontation with Cross, during which Cross is forced to fire his weapon, injuring him slightly. But once Szabo is captured, he becomes completely mute, unresponsive, just spits at the investigators.
The case seems closed. Szabo is the mastermind.
Except he's not.
Not even close. The mastermind immediately proves that Szabo was nothing more than a carefully chosen, disposable decoy by escalating the personal violence against the task force. We see the terrifying fate of FBI agent James Walsh, who had been closely involved in the investigation.
The mastermind stalks him. He breaks into Walsh's home in Alexandria. When Walsh confronts the intruder with a loaded shotgun, the mastermind calmly reveals that he had already emptied the shells.
He wasn't there to rob him. He was there to terrorize him. He taunts Walsh, promising to catch all the agents one by one: Walsh, Dowd, Cavalier, and even Cross.
Walsh is later found dead by gunshot. The death is ruled a suicide.
But Dowd and Cavalier immediately and vehemently reject this. They say he was absolutely not the type. It's obvious to them that this was a calculated murder, staged to look like a suicide stemming from the psychological pressure of the job.
And the personal attack is confirmed later that day. The mastermind calls Cross after the murder, gloating.
The chilling taunt he delivers is, "Oh, and have a nice time over at Betsy Cavalier's. I certainly did."
It's an explicit confirmation. The mastermind was present at Walsh's home. He executed the agent, and he knew exactly where Cross was heading next. The danger just became intensely, terrifyingly personal.
The mastermind's arrogance, which fueled this entire spree, finally provides the critical piece of information needed to unmask this complex double deception.
Cross, he's lying awake, wrestling with the implications of Walsh's murder, and he finally connects two seemingly unrelated details.
He goes back to the initial recruitment effort for the very first bank job. He recalls the silhouette described by Tony Brophy, one of the recruits who was turned away for not being cold-blooded enough.
And Brophy remembered the mastermind having a specific appearance. A hooked nose and large ears, like a car with both doors open.
That profile is the key. It does not match Szabo, the mute, regular-featured patient sitting in custody. Cross realizes that Szabo was only the mastermind of the decoy plan, a brilliant, self-fulfilling prophecy orchestrated by someone who knew the exact workings of the psychiatric ward and Szabo's history.
And the true physical description perfectly matches Dr. Bernard Francis, a psychiatrist who had worked at Hazelwood before conveniently transferring to Florida only 8 months prior.
Francis was the ultimate professional mask.
He had complete, intimate knowledge of the Hazelwood facility and its patients. He had chosen Szabo, the paranoid former bank security head, as the perfect disposable smokescreen. Szabo's extreme hatred for banks, his history, his location at the hospital. It all made the evidence found in his apartment seem utterly convincing to the FBI.
Francis had used his professional expertise to commit the perfect psychological misdirection.
But Francis commits one final, devastating, and entirely perverse act of psychopathy before he's caught. It reinforces that ghoul side of his personality we saw with Brian Parker. The scene shifts to Hartford.
He breaks into a woman's apartment wearing a Clinton mask, the same mask used in the very first bank robbery. It links this final, sadistic crime all the way back to the organized spree. He rapes the victim, a woman named Justine.
But the motive isn't simple gratification, it's dominance and creation. He tells Justine that he wants her to carry his baby, which he calls a masterpiece.
And he threatens to torture and kill her if she reports the crime or attempts to abort the pregnancy. This demand for a masterpiece baby reveals this unbelievable level of narcissistic delusion that his genetic material, coupled with his crime, must result in some kind of supreme being.
Tragically, Justine reports the rape to the hospital and the police. She makes the fatal mistake Francis warned her against.
He immediately tracks her down and poisons her. She's found dead on her kitchen floor, grotesquely twisted, just like Errol and Brian Parker, confirming once and for all that Dr. Francis, the respected psychiatrist, is the same killer who used the paralytic Anactine on his own crew.
So the hunt shifts to Florida, where Francis had established his new life. The breakthrough comes from a nurse McGuigan, who had been romantically involved with Francis and helped him cover his tracks.
She only flips after FBI agents find some of the Metro Hartford diamonds part of the ransom buried in her yard. Facing federal charges and the truth about Francis's pathology, she confesses. She provides the location of his condo in Singer Island, Florida.
The final confrontation with Dr. Bernard Francis, the mastermind, is just characterized by his supreme, unchecked arrogance. He denies everything. He insists he's a respected physician, calling Cross and Betsy peons who are attempting to ruin his life.
He is entirely invested in his own delusion of superiority.
But when he's cornered, his psychopathic need for control, for spectacle, for danger, it just takes over. He knows he's beaten, so he chooses a spectacular exit.
In an almost unbelievable display of bravado, Francis leaps headfirst off his fifth-floor roof deck toward the swimming pool below.
This action, jumping 5 stories into a small target like that, it's crucial to analyze. It wasn't a practical escape attempt, was it? It was a final, spectacular act of self-aggrandizement.
And both Cross and Betsy, driven by adrenaline and desperation, they leap off the roof deck right after him.
Cross hits the water hard, but the effort pays off. Francis is eventually captured as he struggles to flee onto a neighboring property. He's alive, but certainly injured.
And the vast majority of his estimated $15 million share is never recovered. It's just swallowed up by his network of deception.
Just as Cross believes the professional battle is won and his personal life is beginning to regain some fragile balance, Janny is recovering beautifully from her surgery. Little Alex Jr. is coming to live with him full-time. The ultimate, most devastating price of this entire investigation is paid.
Kyle Craig calls Cross with the news that instantly nullifies any feeling of victory: the murder of Agent Betsy Cavalier.
She's found in her Woodbridge, Virginia home. And this was not a quick, staged crime like Walsh's murder.
No. The sources detail the horrifying brutality. The mastermind had broken in, stripped her naked, and brutally murdered her with a knife. The sheer volume of blood everywhere, especially noted between her legs, indicates this horrifying, sadistic level of personal punishment and hatred.
It connects right back to the ghoulish sadism we saw in the Parker murder and the Hartford rape.
It was a final, deeply personal statement. The mastermind Francis managed to commit the perfect revenge, even while in custody. Or at least he made Cross believe he did.
And that's the terrifying ambiguity, isn't it? The mastermind's final horrifying note is his immediate phone call to Cross. He calls to confirm his presence at the crime scene, gloating, proving his total control and absolute lack of remorse. He's reinforcing that earlier taunt that he had got all the agents one by one.
The capture of Francis only seems to have been the beginning of the true nightmare. The case is closed, but the cost, specifically Betsy Cavalier's life, is just immeasurable.
So if we synthesize this horrific journey, this investigation serves as this masterful study in organizational pathology meeting immovable psychopathy.
Right. On one hand, you had the mechanical military precision required for the robberies, demanding that 9.99999 out of 10 service level. This was the outward projection of his need for absolute control.
And on the other, you had the deeply narcissistic and sadistic individual psychopathy of Bernard Francis, the respected doctor who used his expertise to execute a flawless double deception. He was driven by this fundamental need for superiority, for revenge, for perceived slights, and the ultimate twisted thrill of murder, sadism, and psychological warfare against the FBI itself.
The key takeaway for you, the listener, has to be the sheer fragility of the line between professionalism and pathology. How extreme rigidity and a disproportionate sense of grievance stemming from something as trivial as a denied personal loan can spiral into this catastrophic systemic evil.
And that evil was perfectly masked by the perpetrator's expertise in psychology, using a paranoid patient as the ideal protective smokescreen.
It makes you wonder about the internal calculus of a mind like that. Francis, the mastermind, he essentially achieved his 2 goals: massive profit, even though it was unrecovered, and a devastating personal revenge against the institutions and individuals he felt wronged him.
But considering his final, desperate, spectacle-driven act, that conscious dive off a 5th-floor roof rather than some quiet escape plan, was the need for the thrill and danger, the addiction to the spectacle of the perfect crime, ultimately what caused his inevitable error and capture.
That's the question, isn't it? Is the pursuit of absolute control and spectacular arrogance an addiction that guarantees self-destruction, no matter how flawless the initial plan might be?